Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome in to the Fantasy Roundup. I'm your host, Spencer the Guru Urquhart. Alongside me is Gabe Henderson. We are here to break down the running back position, y'all, for fantasy football purposes. With the NFL draft recently ending, we're breaking down all the positions. We did quarterbacks last week, so if y'all want to see that, go check out the replay. But we're live right now, so you might as well, if you're here, tune in and see our thoughts on the running backs position. And we've also got some DFS takes for tonight's fantasy basketball slate, fantasy baseball waiver wire, and our rants. Gabe, how you feeling, man?
Feeling good. Excited to get into the running back class.
Right, yeah, it's an interesting class. The running back class is usually always intriguing, but this year's especially so with two backs going in the top 12 there, Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. So should be a lot of fun as far as seeing how they'll do from a fantasy football perspective. Both should be involved early and often. We've also got some talk about the Saints rookie, Kendre Miller. I know a lot of y'all Saints fans want to hear our thoughts on him, so we'll have that here soon. But before we get too deep into it, let's shout out our sponsor, Caesars Sportsbook. Make sure to go sign up with Caesars if you haven't already. They've got a promotional offer for all of those that haven't signed up, so make sure to get on that before it's gone. And we've got, a lot of action today, NBA playoffs tonight, and a lot of MLB, a full MLB slate. This is a Tuesday, and Jerry in the house. What's up, man? We'll might have a little bit of Saints talk, too, at the end if we have time. We've got our poll question up. Make sure to go vote on that if you haven't already about who will be the most impactful Saints rookie, Brian Bresee, Isaiah Foskey, Kendre Miller, who we're going to talk about on this show, or another rookie. How about the guard from Old Dominion, or A.T. Perry, Jake Haener? Hopefully not Jake Haener. God forbid Derek Carr gets hurt in his first year as a Saint. And also Jameis Winston in the fold, so highly unlikely that he would be the answer. But if you think one of the others could do it, then go vote on that on the Bayou Bets poll question on our bet.nola.com site. So let's get into these headlines here. Got a few fantasy headlines. Nothing too crazy, kind of a quiet week, at football, those things calming down after the draft. Baseball still hot and heavy, though. Had a lot of injury news. And the big one, though, Aaron Judge back from the IL. He's ready to go for tonight. Should provide a much-needed shot in the arm for a Yankees team that's struggling just to tread water. I think they're last in the AL East, which is toughest division in baseball. But still, if you're the Yankees, that's not where you want to be, not up to standard. So we'll see if Judge's return can get them going in the right direction. I'm a Yankee hater, so I don't feel sorry for him one bit. Chris Paul ruled out for Game 5 tonight. This is one that's kind of interesting in that the Suns seem to have been playing better without him. They were without him the past two games at home, won both of those. Tonight's going to be tougher for him, though, on the road against Denver. I like the Nuggets tonight, -6, even though they've lost the last two. Nuggets at home, very, very good. 6-0 at home so far this postseason. Or maybe it's 5-0. I think they won. Yeah, 5-0. My bad. But the point is they're very dominant at home. So I don't think if Chris Paul playing or not is going to really make a difference. Dalton Kincaid, those who have a couple NFL blurbs here. Dalton Kincaid, the rookie tight end for the Bills. A report came out that he's expected to see time in the slot as basically a slot receiver there in Buffalo, to where they're going to probably play a lot of 12 personnel. Dawson Knox going to still play tight end. 12 personnel, for those that don't know, 2 tight end offense, where 2 tight ends play at the same time, like the Eagles did there when they had Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. So Dalton Kincaid expected to be on the field a lot as a rookie, which makes sense being that he was a first-round pick, which is music to our ears for fantasy football purposes. And this isn't music to our ears, though. Saquon Barkley and the Giants still are not close to a new deal, according to the latest reports. They're far away, because it seems like the Giants, they paid Daniel Jones. They paid, who was it recently? Dexter Lawrence on defense, to where they've kind of running low on money there, and running back is a position that's been devalued over the years. I know Saquon's a stud, but they might not be able to afford it. And if he's not willing to play on the franchise tag, we might have us a Le'Veon Bell situation.
I think they'll get there. I mean, Saquon Barkley is one of the premium guys, premium backs in the league, and they have a lack of weapons on offense right now, so they've really got to strike a deal with him.
Yeah, I mean, they've actually added weapons, though. I mean, Darren Waller, but yeah, outside of Waller, their receiving core is a little bit weak. They drafted Jalen Hyatt, added Paris Campbell, Jamison Crowder in free agency. So they definitely still need Saquon because they're the thing that tells me why they're going to end up caving in and giving him his money is that their depth behind him is lacking. Is Matt Breida, then a 5th-round rookie, Eric Gray, and then a Gary Brightwell, a guy they drafted a few years ago that's barely seen the field. That's not promising. I mean, if you go from Saquon to that, your offense takes a big hit because Daniel Jones is not a high volume passer. Daniel Jones needs Saquon. As we noticed, he had a career year last year. Jones did. But what was the difference? A healthy Saquon. He actually had a healthy Saquon Barkley because Saquon's rookie year, when he was healthy and did really well, it was still Eli Manning at quarterback. This was the first full season of a healthy Saquon with Daniel Jones, and we saw the results. Giants much improved on offense, made the playoffs, won a playoff game even. So this Saquon deal needs to get done, and I'm with you, Gabe. I think it will, but if it doesn't, though, the concern here is if it doesn't, it could get ugly in that he might just be like, all right, y'all not going to pay me? I'm holding out. But I think they'll eventually pay him, being that he's very important to what they do. Because the Steelers, I mentioned Le'Veon Bell a little while ago, the Steelers, they were able to get by just fine without Le'Veon Bell. They had James Conner ready to go. So they actually had leverage. I don't think the Giants have that kind of leverage here.
What you mean, Spencer? They got Matt Breida ready to go.
Yeah, I don't think Matt Breida is going to be turning heads anytime soon. James Conner was a young back who turned out. I mean, he's still a starter to this day. He's had actually just about as good of a career as Lev Bell, if we're being honest. Probably not quite as good in his prime. Lev Bell in his prime was really good, but when you factor in whole body work, James Conner's put together a pretty nice run to be back as the Cardinals starter. So we'll have more breakdowns on like the veteran running backs. We're talking rookies here today, and we'll have a little bit of baseball talk later. I see my dad here saying about the Cardinals winning 2 in a row. Yeah, finally.
Must be nice.
Yeah, I know, right? It was such a disaster there. So it feels nice to get back in the win column a little bit. And yeah, we'll have a little later a couple of waiver wire darlings for y'all. A couple of pitchers that I think could be, I'll go as far as to say potential league winners. I mean, these are the guys we got this week. For those in fantasy baseball, y'all need to stick around because we've got some big names on the list this week that are rostered still in less than 50% of leagues. One of them a former LSU alum. So with that teaser, let's I know for those that are wanting to play NBA DFS are probably itching to know what we think for tonight so they can get those lineups in here soon. So I've got Marcus Smart as a value tonight. Celtics Sixers game 5. I think Smart is in good position to carry over his momentum. He's been really balling lately. I mean, all the attention's on Tatum and Brown. They don't really have a true third scorer in Boston, but Smart stepped up as a scorer. I mean, he nearly made the winning shot if the time expired barely. He would have been a hero in game 4. Boston would be up 3-1. They have much different series. But I think in game 5, he's a guy that's a seasoned vet, knows his moment won't be too big for him. Played in the finals before. This is where the guys like him shine, guys that he won the new award, the Hustle Award, they called it, for the guy that's just always making moves. He's not the most physically gifted, but he's a guy he's going to always be on your tail, and he's gotten more confident as a scorer. So I think he's a bargain at 5,200. And I see you, Gabe, have the Sixers' third option there, Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, I was really tempted to go with Kevin Durant at 10,000, but we're talking about value here. Yeah, we're talking about values here. I think Kevin Durant is still the number one play tonight just because of how well he's played, and I don't think Devin Booker can keep shooting 60% from the field, so I think Durant's the go-to option. But no, we're talking value, so I'm going with a guy with breakout potential in Tyrese Maxey. You know, he hasn't played particularly well lately in these last few games, but he's a guy who had 26 in game 1 when Joel Embiid was injured. And he's got that breakout potential. He hasn't shot the ball well the last few games, so if in a pivotal game 5, this is a guy you can look to step up. He can hit threes. He's a lock for almost 2 threes a night. So I think with the Sixers probably going to be chasing the Celtics scoring at home, the Celtics at home, that is. I think Tyrese Maxey is a good value play tonight.
Yeah, for sure. Because, I mean, yeah, James Harden, you know, he had the big game last game. They're going to be clamping on him, or Marcus Smart going to be all in his grill, probably trying to prevent him from having another night like that. So, yeah, Tyrese Maxey should have a good night there. And, yeah, as far as, like, the anchor play for those, I know somebody ought to do the DFS showdown captain mode. Like, you know, maybe Joel Embiid tonight. Maybe Embiid could finally have a big game. I know you're high on KD, Gabe, which so far, I remember I did my rant about KD a few weeks ago, and so far he has proven me dead wrong. He's been just as good as ever in this postseason run. But I think they could run into a buzzsaw tonight against Denver. I think the Joker, it's hard to bet against him. I mean, he got so many potential anchor options. But I probably won't go with Tatum or Brown because we never know which one is going to really be the dominant scorer. They kind of it fluctuates. So I'd go, and I think Harden, he hadn't really given me enough confidence in that he can string together back-to-back dominant outings. So I would say either Embiid, Joker, or Kevin Durant because, like you said, Devin Booker, he can't keep shooting at the clip he's shooting at. He's a stud, but I think people are going a little too crazy for him right now. But for those that doing traditional lineups looking for values, yeah, Marcus Smart, Tyrese Maxey, get them into your either guard or utility spots. So let's move on to the running back talk here. Rookie running backs, where did they land? How will they do in fantasy football for 2023? And we're starting off with the obvious name here, Bijan Robinson, first-round selection, headed to the Atlanta Falcons, going to be a thorn in the Saints side for the next at least 4 or 5 years. Selected 8th overall, and he's the favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, plus 350, favored over all the quarterbacks. I think did Bryce Young open as the favorite? I think they were tied, I think, but then reports came out that the Panthers might start Andy Dalton week 1. I highly doubt that, but you never know if Young doesn't develop as quickly as they're thinking, and maybe, but I would think being that he went to Alabama that Young will pick up on things quick enough to start. But anyway, though, I can see why Bijan is a favorite because he is a true generational talent at the position, the running back position, right? He's going to put up so many stats early on. My only concern, though, and not really a concern, it's just more of just a disclaimer, like when you draft him, he is a rookie, y'all. I mean, even like guys like Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall last year before the ACL, I mean, like their first few games, they weren't that great. So you just got to bear in mind that Bijan Robinson is a rookie. So if you spend the first-round draft pick on him, don't panic if after a month in his stats are looking a little light. But I think once he gets comfortable and established there, he's going to be top 5 running back in year 1, especially considering how well he can catch passes. But they still have Cordero Patterson. They still have Tyler Algier. So I think early on it's going to be kind of a committee. But I think once Bijan gets his feet under him, then he's going to take off. So I'm endorsing him as a top 5 running back. But be prepared for a slow start.
I completely agree with you. I mean, I would like to know the amount of leagues where Bijan Robinson, where a bunch of dynasty leagues, that is, where Bijan Robinson doesn't go 1-1 in the rookie draft. I mean, I would be astonished if he didn't in every league this offseason. He's that good. He's got that much potential. I think the offense and the fit is really good for him. And like you mentioned, he's a generational talent at running back. So if he can even live up to half the hype that's surrounded him the last few months, top 5 potential for sure.
Yeah, and that's in redraft. Dynasty. I mean, you can make a case that in a dynasty startup that's being done right now with rookies in the pool, you could make a case that he's the number 1 pick that I would consider taking him over, because I don't know. I mean, CMC's getting up there. Eckler, I mean, they're both over 25, pushing 30. They're the consensus top 2 in redraft. And I'm trying to Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he showed his flaws last year. He was the consensus #1 dynasty pick, but not anymore. Maybe Justin Jefferson, in PPR, especially like 2-point PPR. I know some leagues are going to that. They could make a case for him, but in just a traditional PPR format, like I'd be tempted to go Bijan one. I think it's a debate between him and Justin Jefferson. I think it's a really just kind of a coin flip there. I'd probably go Jefferson, being that he's just so proven, but running backs are more scarce positions, so I could see going Bijan too. So
yeah, for sure. I don't know if I'd go #1 overall in a redraft.
yeah, I was talking dynasty startup. Yeah, redraft. Redraft to me, it's either Jefferson, CMC, or Eckler. I say it's a 3-horse race.
Even in a dynasty startup, I'm gonna err on the side of caution with you, and I'd go with someone like Jefferson. I personally wouldn't take Robinson, but I also wouldn't slander someone in my league for taking Bijan #1.
Yeah, so it'd be a more bold strategy, but it's one that could definitely pay off. I'd say it's much better than like going and saying, "Oh, well, JT, like I mean, he was #1 last year. I'll take him." But it's like JT, and like he's nice, but he's not. He doesn't have the upside of Bijan, especially as far as a receiver. But we know how good Bijan is. Let's say just we know what he is. He's a Falcon, but we got to admit when talent's there. But let's move on now though to Jahmyr Gibbs, who is also a very high pick there by the Detroit Lions, but 12th overall is very shocking considering he was not the generational type prospect that Robinson was. He is a very good prospect, expected to go late first, early second, but early first was quite the surprise. But the Lions obviously were bullish on him, shipped DeAndre Swift out of town. And so Gibbs should be in position for success right away, 7-1 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. And I think that could be a value, because I think in that offense, he might put up as a rookie just as good or better numbers than Bijan, because in the Falcons system, Bijan is probably going to have some kind of rough outings with Desmond Ridder at quarterback. They're going to have some games where they just stink, where Detroit, depending on how much work Gibbs can steal from David Montgomery, who's their current starter, the veteran, like I think Gibbs could be sneaky good. It's just I feel like this though, for redraft purposes, wait for Gibbs. You don't have to go pull him up super high like Bijan, because he's not as sure of a thing. He has just as much upside, arguably, but he doesn't have the floor. I feel like Bijan has a very stable floor. I don't feel like there's much bust potential with Bijan. Gibbs, though, I think there's some bust potential in that. David Montgomery, if he ends up fitting in really well in Detroit, Gibbs as a rookie might struggle to see the field much. I mean, look at DeAndre Swift last year. Once Jamal Williams kind of took over there, they leaned more on Jamal, and Swift was kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, this is a really interesting case, because if you look at Gibbs and Montgomery compared to Williams and Swift, Gibbs and Swift are almost the same player, and as are Montgomery and Williams. And, a lot of people like to talk about the lack of production from DeAndre Swift as the year went on last year. People forget he was really good to start the year, and he was really involved before he got hurt. And
he was just always hurt. I think that's why they shipped him out.
Yeah, and I think if the Lions intend to use Gibbs in that role, which a 12th overall pick would suggest they do, I think, like you said, there's a lot of potential there. It's just whether or not Montgomery will be that touchdown vulture, and whether or not he'll get a bulk of the carries. And it'll be really intriguing to see early on, and I guess we'll figure out. But I think if Gibbs can take on the workload that Swift did at the beginning of the year last year, Gibbs has got a lot of fantasy potential.
Yeah, he definitely does, because he has similar receiving chops to Bijan, and these are guys that could be catching 60, 70 passes as rookies. So yeah, I really like the upside here. I probably wouldn't touch Gibbs though to like the 5th or 6th round, but I have a feeling he's going to go 3rd, 4th round in a lot of these redrafts, and So I probably won't have many shares of him because I know how these drafts go. Once they get into July and August, everyone's like gassing up the rookies to where it's just probably not going to get him in a value. But if you're doing like early best ball drafts, you might be able to get him at a reasonable price in some of those. So should be interesting. Hopefully it doesn't get too crazy. Maybe if they have some good puff pieces about Montgomery, that might kind of slow down the Gibbs hype. So let's move on now to Zach Charbonnet, another big prospect there, drafted in the second round by the Seahawks, the only second round running back selection. This kind of goes back to my rant last week about Kenneth Walker. I think this is a good fit. A lot of people don't think so. They think, oh, it's not going to have enough for both. But I think there will be enough for both, especially if Seattle's defense is better or they can run the football more. I think they'll definitely have enough for both. I mean, because these run-heavy teams like the Seahawks, look at the Browns, Thunder and Lightning, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. I think the Seahawks see Ken Walker, Zach Charbonnet as a potential groundbreaking Thunder and Lightning, similar to Ingram, Kamara in their primes with the Saints, like guys that could be racking up yards and touchdowns and receptions. Like they're going to do it all. I mean, Walker, not so much the receptions, and then Charbonnet probably not so much the touchdowns. But Charbonnet for PPR leagues will be nice because he'll be catching those checkdowns from Geno, who they drafted Jackson Smith and Jig, but I think Seattle shifted more. They're going to try to probably do more of checkdowns, quick passes. Like with Russ, it was more like chuck it, deep balls, where with Geno, it's a little more. And the offense was honestly just as good or better than it was with Russ. If anything, it was more efficient with Geno. It seemed like he was probably a little better decision maker. So like Charbonnet, I think, is in a pretty good spot. 30-1 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. So there'll probably be some growing pains to start. Seattle's a team that typically likes to ease their rookies in. Sometimes, though, they'll let a rookie start right away. I mean, look at Chris Carson and Tariq Woolen last year, corner. And then you go, of course, over a decade ago, Russell Wilson beats out Matt Flynn as a rookie to start. So it's like, if Pete Carroll sees a rookie doing his thing, he's not scared to use them. So I think Charbonnet could have some pretty good value, especially down the stretch. So he's someone you can get him. I wouldn't take him, though, to the double-digit rounds. Don't be that guy that reaches up high. Oh, see, I got a rookie running back. Let him come to you. Get him in a value, and then he can kind of chill on the bench, and then he's a good play potentially even with Walker. And then if an injury to Walker would occur, then it's, well, at that point, Charbonnet to the moon.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you look at over the last few years, ever since Marshawn Lynch left Seattle, it's been a revolving door at running back. And I think, and I almost hope it's not once bitten, twice shy with the Seahawks. I hope they took Charbonnet because they feel he can be that lightning to Kenneth Walker's thunder. But I almost fear that they took him in case Walker gets hurt and just so they have that guy. So I'm not really sold on him being a big part of the Seahawks offense, especially considering the incredible receiving core they have and the extension they just signed Geno to. But I hope he is. So, I mean, like you said, if he is involved a lot, and if we do get a Kenneth Walker injury, then Zach Charbonnet can be a blue chip fantasy player.
Right. Yeah, it's just, he probably won't. I'd say the first half of the year is probably going to be him just kind of learning and stuff. So it is more of a patience play. I tell you what, he could be a guy, someone takes him and then he gets dropped. And then look at a guy like Nick Chubb as a rookie. He didn't do much in the first half, got dropped in a lot of leagues, and then boom, ends up being a league winner. Or it was I got to scoop him up. So for y'all Saints fans in the chat, let's talk Kendre Miller. Third round selection, 71st overall, 40-1 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Man, he must have had some money come in on Kendre because he was 100-1. I should have put a few bucks on that because now 40-1, it's like, that's actually reasonable. Like 100-1, that's such a bargain because with Kamara's potential suspension, like, damn, it's like he might see a lot of playing time early and often. But I'll be real with y'all, I'm not that high on Kendre for fantasy. And the reason being is that his biggest weakness, according to reports, is pass protection. And that's something that as a rookie, like if you're kind of weak in that, you're gonna lose snaps, and maybe he'll be a quick learner. We'll have to keep an eye on his development and training camp. If he can pick up on pass pro quick, then he'll be okay. But if not, like he might not see the field all that much as a rookie, because if Kamara gets suspended, and like Jamal Williams will see most of the snaps, and he's a guy that's more on early downs. And if Kendry's specialty is also early downs, and they probably don't complement each other real well. That's why it goes back to my pre-draft hope of the Saints getting Tajay Spears, because I felt like Tajay Spears would have been a better complement to Jamal Williams once Kamara went out. But I'm thinking they view this Kendrick Miller thing as he's got the most long-term potential to be like a complete 3-down back, like once Williams and Kamara are both over the hill, which they're both pushing 30. So like I kind of get the logic here, but for redraft, I'm not really that high on Kendrick Miller. I don't. The pass protection thing scares me.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that Kendre Miller's had going for him, and this is not to slight him at all, is the black cloud that is Kamara's suspension. And I don't think they brought in Williams to not start and to lose time to a rookie. So, yeah, short and sweet. I'm with you on this one. I think Miller has potential long term, but in fantasy, I don't think I'll touch him unless I'm in a really, really deep league next year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Dynasty, I'd take him. But yeah, redraft, which we're talking a traditional redraft, probably not going to touch him. But yeah, just I wanted to address him. And a lot of y'all Saints fans are probably wondering, but don't be a homer. I'm just going to don't be a homer and take this guy super high. I don't think he's going to have a Kamara-like impact as a rookie. But, things can change. Keep an eye on training camp reports and such once the time comes. But let's move on here to Dynasty stashes. A couple guys that didn't go quite as high, but should have good long-term outlooks. I went with Tajay Spears. He didn't land in a great spot for redraft purposes. Tennessee, it's the King Derrick Henry. It's his backfield. It's Tajay Spears he's going to be left fighting for scraps as a rookie. Let's be honest. So I'm gonna pump the brakes on him as far as a redraft play. I'm not gonna be a homer and be like, oh, I'm taking Tajay in my redraft. Like, he's waiver wire fodder in year one. But I really like his long-term outlook, because Derrick Henry he's if he's not 30, he's really close. I mean, he came into the league a while ago. Now it was like 2016. So he's getting up in age and also mileage. I mean, Derrick Henry, he's durable as anybody. I mean, he's very durable. The only major injury I remember him having was that foot injury from 2021. Outside of that, he has been a freaking horse, man. He's the one you can give 30 to 40 touches to on a weekly basis, and it just doesn't seem to bother him. But his body's going to break down eventually. I mean, look at beast mode. We all go, beast mode. He's just going to keep going and going. But I mean, he broke down eventually. No big back like that can keep going forever. It's just the unfortunate reality of the position. It's not a position that you can be good at for more than about a decade. So Tajay Spears, I think the Titans drafted him thinking, third round, like he might be our Henry successor. He's a different kind of runner. He's not nearly as big. He's more of a guy that's like, I think could be 3 downs though, because he's capable of carrying the load on early downs. Like he did that at Tulane, and he's very capable as a pass catcher. Didn't catch a whole lot at Tulane, but their offense, was a little, I don't want to say bland, but it was just like, didn't really throw to the backs much, I don't think, to where like I think he's definitely got potential to be a good pass catcher out of backfield. So he'll probably never be a Derrick Henry type as far as running for 1,500 yards, double-digit touchdowns. But I think he's a guy that if things break right for him, he could eventually start over there and be someone that's a good long-term play.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I know you mentioned the fact that Derrick Henry could break down, as I think you put it. One thing that we also have to consider here is a Derrick Henry trade.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
I know nobody really wants to talk about that, and I know that people don't
the Titans
really
suck.
Consider that a possibility. But yeah, if the Titans get almost halfway through the season and they're last in the AFC South somehow, or they're just a game or two above the Texans, just lagging behind the Jags, they've really got to consider blowing it up. And I think that starts with Derrick Henry. And because of that pass catching ability that you mentioned, and because he's got the potential to take over midseason for one reason or another, I think Spears is almost worth, if not taking with your last pick in a redraft, keeping an eye on and just keeping an eye on him on the waivers, just because Tennessee is such a mess. It becomes a question of whether or not you want to have a starting running back of a terrible team on your bench, but I think the potential's there, and he can rack up some fantasy points. We saw it last year with Dontrell Hilliard behind Derrick Henry. The Titans, they like to throw the ball a lot to running backs, especially if they're going to use Ryan Tannehill out the gates again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a good point. So Tajay could be worth a stash, especially for those that take Derrick Henry as like a handcuff, and then even if not, just as someone that's a speculative play, if kind of like with Kendre Miller, if Camaro gets suspended. So, yeah, I would. That's a good point. So, yeah, the future could be now for Tajay if a Henry trade or injury would happen. But I see you've got a guy kind of in a similar spot there, Chase Brown with the Bengals, backing up Joe Mixon.
I do. The sense we've gotten this offseason, and there's been no confirmed reports. It's almost like the Derrick Henry thing. It's just fans spewing narratives. Is that the Bengals almost seem ready to move on from Joe Mixon? I don't know how much I believe that, but if that is the case, Chase Brown's a guy who could succeed him. He was an absolute workhorse in college. He averaged an astonishing 27 carries a game in his senior season at Illinois. Yet throughout his whole career in college, he averaged 5.3 yards. This is a talented, shifty running back. His pass catching has improved. So with Samaje Perine gone in Cincinnati, and obviously Giovanni Bernard's been gone for a couple of years, I think Chase Brown's a guy who can slip into that role right away. The one knock on him is he doesn't score that many touchdowns, or he didn't in college. Maybe, hopefully, that'll improve. But if the Bengals really are hesitant about the future of Joe Mixon, Chase Brown's worth a stash. And, I don't have him up here. I'm surprised you didn't, Spencer. I think one guy to keep an eye on, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. Devon Achane, I think, is another guy to keep an eye on, especially in dynasty leagues, and stash him of the Dolphins. People are scared of the running back by committee there in Miami, but
that's why I didn't put him.
Yeah, exactly. Devon, I think you can agree with me. He's an insanely talented back who's got a lot of potential there.
Yeah, he's got potential. His size scares me, only 5'9". It's like, he ever be able to be a workhorse? Yeah. Some of these guys, guys like Eckler's not the biggest. CMC, they do well. So, it's just the skill set, though. He's more of a speed guy, Achane, like, where it just kind of scares me as far as, like, those kind of guys are more, I don't want to say like video game-esque, but kind of, in that they're just, they don't really, he doesn't seem to do a whole lot well outside of his speed. So we'll see how it translates to the NFL. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but I don't want any part of Achane. I think he's a scat back, in my opinion. I just don't see him ever being somebody you can rely on, but for more to like 5 to 10 touches a game.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think, that's why we're putting him in the stashes, because
for
guaranteed they're not Gibbs or Bijan, who we're going to take in the first round, no matter what draft we're in.
Yeah, just stash them on the taxi squad and hope for the best, either in the second half or here next year. A lot of leagues you can carry over your taxi squad as sophomores. So, just take a chance and hope that they can break through at some point. Let's move on now, though, to the fantasy baseball waiver wire. And, man, we've got a lot of pitchers emerging. And I had to shout out Bryce Miller for the Mariners. Man, I was kicking myself because I didn't add him in my league. I was such an idiot. I gave Jack Flaherty one more chance. It's probably the Cardinals fan in me as being a homer. And sure enough, it bit me. 10 earned runs, ended up on the hook for that crap. I immediately dropped him after and got the young Guardians pitcher, BB, who didn't do that well in his last start. So I'm really kicking myself for not adding Bryce Miller because this kid looks special. Went to Texas A&M, and he's just looking like a seasoned vet already. I know it's only 2 starts, but damn, he just looks. And that's another thing I thought about him. And he had the A's his first start, and then he had the Astros. Like, well, he'll probably do good against the A's, and the Astros will probably knock him around. Nope, he shut the Astros down. And I don't know if he saw that game, Gabe. I didn't get to watch it. I know you're a resident Astros fan here. He just from the box score though, it's just like it looked like a nasty. Like, look like he had nasty stuff going, considering how few walks and hits he gave up.
Yeah, the Astros lineup isn't exactly lighting the world on fire right now, but considering they're missing 3 of their key pieces. But yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, that's just the thing that I like with this Miller kid is that he's got a lot of strikeout potential, and that it's not like he hadn't been walking a tightrope. As far as, even though the Astros aren't up to standard right now and the A's suck. I mean, the A's can hit sometimes. I mean, the A's, like Brent Rooker, he's someone we could have put on here, the outfielder there. They've got some pretty good bats there with the A's. And the leadoff guy, Ruiz, is a base stealing machine. The A's lineup isn't quite as bad as people are making it out to be. So, like, I mean, obviously Miller can't keep this up, but I think he's somebody, though, and the Mariners have produced a lot of good pitching prospects recently. George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, to where I think he's here to stay. I don't think this is a fluke.
I agree with you.
For sure. Yeah, he's nasty. I see you got a former LSU alum there, Alex Lang. He's the closer now for the Tigers, only rostered in 20% of leagues, kind of getting slept on there. But I see he's been racking up saves and striking out batters. Like, Tigers aren't a great team, but when they do win, probably a close game to where he should see some save chances. And yeah, I think he's someone that should be added if you need a closer.
Yeah, Alex Lang. I mean, he transitioned from that starter role with the LSU Tigers to a closer role now with the Detroit Tigers. This is a guy that all LSU fans will remember. He didn't have a memorable start to his MLB career, but now that he's transitioned to a closer, I'm just going to rattle off some numbers, Spencer. This is in his last 30 appearances with the Tigers, 27.2 innings pitched. He's allowed 14 hits, 2 runs, only walked 12 batters, and struck out 34. This is a guy averaging 11.1 strikeouts per 9. He's got a 0.65 ERA in his last 30. And, I mean, if you look at just this season, 17 appearances, he's given up 9 hits and just 2 runs. I mean, no one can touch Alex Lang right now. It's like taking him back to the box and putting him on a Friday night every time he trots out there. The confidence is off the charts. And you mentioned his save potential. The Detroit Tigers are not a very good team at all. But Alex Lang has managed to rack up 6 saves already this year, and that translates to fantasy points. So don't let the fact that he plays for Detroit scare you. Alex Lang's a legit relief pitcher.
Yeah, that's the only reason why he's rostered in so few leagues. So, yeah, take advantage of guys on these bad teams. Like Royals guys. You can like Vinny Pasquantino, able to get him at a good deal in drafts because he plays for the Royals. Christian Walker, another one. I have them in one of my leagues. They've been doing pretty well, especially Walker. He has crushed it. I mean, you can get these guys on bad teams or supposed bad teams. The Diamondbacks are also a pretty good start. I mean, the Royals, that's a very bad team. But like you've got guys on these teams that produce pretty well. And then as far as closers, they've got some closers on not so great teams. I mean, hell, Kyle Finnegan, who's a guy he's not even a good relief pitcher, but he's got 7 saves because he's a closer. He's a Nationals closer. He's not very good, but he's the closer, and so he gets saves because when a bad team does win, it's usually close. To where, don't be scared of Lang because he plays for the Tigers. That kid he's got a lot of potential, and he's just a closer now. He doesn't even have to worry about throwing he was a starter at LSU. He doesn't have to worry about throwing a lot of innings. He can just throw as hard as he can and just focus on the 1 inning. So yeah, he's in a good spot.
So. Spencer, I have to laugh. You have no idea where I went to high school, yet over the last few shows, you've mentioned 2 MLB players, the only 2 who went to high school with me.
Oh, you went to Lang too?
No, not Lang, Kyle Finnegan.
Oh, really? Kyle Finnegan?
How can he get a Mason Wynn?
That's hilarious. Because I just randomly brought him up, being that he's I was just trying to think of closers on bad teams, and I was like, well, Kyle Finnegan, he's on a bad team. He's got 7 saves. Like, I mean, he's kind of had an off year as far as like it really messed him up. He had 2 outings that he just did horrendous in. Other than that, he's actually been pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I picked him up last year in a league because I needed a closer, and I was like, well, he's for the Nationals, but I mean, he's getting saves, so
yeah.
But cool. All right, so we'll it's time to rant. Trying to prepare here for this one because I hate to do this because I love Cooper Kupp. I mean, who doesn't? He's a fantasy darling. He's arguably the best receiver in the whole NFL. But for fantasy this year, it's time to quit ranking him as a top 3. Because guess what, y'all? The Rams suck. They're terrible. They are terrible. Look at their roster. No offensive line. Matthew Stafford's breaking down. They're all the offense around Cooper Kupp is garbage. Like it's straight up trash. They have no help for him. Yeah, he's gonna get volume. And what inspired me to do this rant was Matthew Berry. Shout out to one of the goats in the fantasy industry, but sometimes he pisses me off. And in this case, he pissed me off because his analysis was so shallow. He was like, Cooper Kupp on a per game basis was number 1 last year. Now that he's healthy, there's no reason to think why he won't get back to number 1. Cooper Kupp, top 3. Just so shallow. I was like, damn, man, like, you don't bring up the fact that their offensive line is trash. You don't bring up the fact that Matthew Stafford is breaking down. And yes, Jerry gets it. They're hot garbage. I mean, look at how they did against the Saints last year. I mean, that was sad. I mean, the Saints weren't that good last year, but they wiped the floor with the Rams because the Rams are, as Jerry says, hot garbage. They've got nothing. So give me Justin Jefferson. Give me Jamar Chase. Give me Tyreek Hill. Give me CeeDee Lamb. Give me A.J. Brown. That's my early top 5. And there's this one thing in common with all those guys. They all are on strong offenses. Dallas, you could debate it. Dallas probably isn't quite as strong as those other 4, but Dallas is still a hell of a lot better than the Los Angeles Rams, who freaking suck. I mean, they are just a terrible team, and they can't do anything because they're in cap hell. They're stuck having to pay out a bunch of dead money to guys like Jalen Ramsey, who are no longer on their roster. So they're paying for it now. They're paying the piper, and the Cooper Kupp is going to suffer as a result. I feel like he'll get enough volume, I think, to still be a low-end WR1, maybe mid, probably. I think I got him right now as my 7th ranked receiver. So I'm not saying to completely avoid this guy, but top 3 at the position? Come on, man. Like, that's just, there's no way.
Now, Jerry on that team awfully generous calling him hot garbage. We got to remember this is a kid-friendly show, and that's why we're calling him hot garbage.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few other terms we could use, but yeah, we gotta keep it family friendly in case any younger folks are watching. But yeah, that's just, I don't get it, man. I just don't understand this. Like, if for someone like Matthew Berry, who's normally better than that, I think I was just disappointed because it's like normally Matthew Berry, I normally like, yeah, he's normally pretty spot on with stuff. I'm not trying to hate on. This isn't I hate Matthew Berry rant. This is just a stop giving shallow analysis rant. Like, you gotta look. I mean, and I didn't even go that deep. I mean, I just kind of looked and like I was going through my receiver rankings and I mentioned those 5 and I'm trying to think who I had 6. Oh yeah, Stephon Diggs. Yeah, Stephon Diggs and Buffalo Bills. Great offense. Like, you're telling me you'd rather Cooper Kupp on the Rams than a Stephon Diggs on the Bills with Josh Allen? You tell me you'd rather Cooper Kupp with brokeback Matthew Stafford throwing to him as opposed to Stephon Diggs with Josh Allen, the Stallion, one of the top 5 QBs? Give me a break. I don't care how good Cooper Kupp is. As far as being a receiver, a lot of it has to do with your quarterback play and your supporting cast. And he's got no help. He's still talent-wise, he's right up there with Chase and Jefferson, but supporting cast-wise, he doesn't have it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I wouldn't put him top 5 going into next year. He's definitely top 10, not top 5 because of the situation.
Right. Yeah, I've actually been going back and forth. I'm about to do a ranking show here within the next week or two I got him back. Him and Garrett Wilson, man, and then Devontae Adams too. Like it's all those three are in Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like there's so many guys you could put up there. But yeah, Wilson with Aaron Rodgers, very intriguing to see what he can do in year two. But I'll let you have the floor now, Gabe. Stop letting Hendon Hooker slip.
Yeah, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I've done a few rookie drafts so far in my dynasty leagues. Hendon Hooker's gone undrafted in all of them. And I mean, I get it, but I'm in leagues that are 14 teams, 3 rounds deep in these rookie drafts. Come on. Hendon Hooker's got to be worth at least a 3rd round flyer. He keeps slipping. I have no idea why this is the case. I mean, I know he's 25. I know he's coming off an ACL. That's fine. But you're using a 3rd round rookie pick. He was mocked as a 1st round talent this year. Only his ACL injury was really the thing that set him back. And he landed in a great spot behind Jared Goff. I mean, we've heard people say that the Lions potentially have cold feet about the future of Jared Goff. You've got a guy in Hendon Hooker right there that could potentially be ready to start in a year or two. And we talked about the taxi squad earlier. He's at least worth a taxi squad spot. So draft him. That way you don't have to take a chance on waivers. You don't have to use any of that cash you have for waivers. You don't have to try and get priority over your friends. Draft Hendon Hooker in the 3rd round in your fantasy drafts or whatever round is going to be last in your rookie drafts. Take him.
Yeah, I feel that because they had a report. It's funny you made your rant about Hooker because they had a recent report that they asked Dan Campbell about Hendon Hooker, and he was like, yeah, this will be a redshirt year for him, but he's like, he likes the fact that he comes in a little older, being that like he'll be ready to start right away whenever he would get the call if they decide to move on from Goff. So yeah, I like your thinking here. Put him on the taxi and that'd be a good offense. He'd be taking over Key's a strong ship there. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams. Hopefully he quits betting so he can play. That guy's never on the field, but if he is on the field, he's an electric talent. And they got the young tight end Sam Laporta, some other decent receivers over there. So, yeah, it's a good offense. And Jahmyr Gibbs, we mentioned him. He's going to catch passes. So, yeah, Hendon Hooker, worth a flyer.
Absolutely. And I think it's a perfect situation for him.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, because they've got all the pieces. Detroit, who would have thought Detroit would have all the pieces needed, but they do. It's just, I don't know, like kind of one more thing before we go here, because it's with Detroit, like, I'll ask you, Gabe, this because like it's been a hot debate about whether they should or shouldn't have drafted Gibbs at 12. And it's like, I kind of see why they did, but I don't think they should have. They should have gone defense because they got all these nice pieces on offense, but defense there could still be a problem.
I think 12 is a little too high for Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't think anyone's going to tell you otherwise. I think they got a very good running back, and with David Montgomery's injury history, I think having a good running back is essential, especially when you saw how high-flying their offense was when DeAndre Swift was on it last year. So, I mean, the conclusion I've come to here is I think Gibbs is drafted too high, but I think he's still a very good running back, and I think he's going to be good in that offense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just if Detroit makes the playoffs this year and loses in a shootout because of their defense, he might look back on it like maybe we should have drafted Christian Gonzalez instead, beef up the secondary. Yeah, they definitely could use some cornerback help. I thought for sure that's where they would go after the Gonzalez slipped, like, because they needed a cornerback. They traded Jeff Okudah away, so I don't know, man. Detroit, but that's why they're Detroit. We love them, but we always root for them. They're an underdog, but they hardly ever live up to it. They're always like the Chargers, them and the Chargers. It's like they're fun to root for. They're underdogs, but we know deep down they're probably going to find a way to screw it up. Unfortunately,
you know what? Put your faith in Dan the Man Campbell.
Yeah, I mean he's a great leader. I hope he can do it for him. But if it's not the Saints, I mean obviously you want the Saints, number one, choice, the local team. But if they can't, well, then yeah, Detroit, they're kind of like a Saints spin-off. They've got a lot of former Saints coaches and similar system in place there. So we'll see. what happens there. But yeah, Saints and Lions definitely should be in the mix there in the NFC, because outside of the Eagles and 49ers, the NFC appears very, very wide open, most wide open I've ever seen it, with the balance of power way weighted to the AFC. So we'll definitely have more to break down on that. NFL schedule release coming out Thursday. That's going to be fun to see where all the games are all line up on the schedule. Jim Derry's going to have a lot of analysis on that the next day on Datitude. Going to break down the Saints schedule and such, and going to have a little formula for y'all about the true strength of schedule based on Vegas win totals as opposed to last season's win-loss records. You know, it can be like, for example, a team like the Saints, I forgot what the Saints record was last year, 7-10, where, you know, or 8, what was it, 7-10, 8? I don't know. It wasn't that good. It was a losing record, I'm pretty sure. But this year they're projected 9.5 wins according to Vegas. So for teams playing the Saints, you know, you'll get that 9.5 on the strength of schedule as opposed to the 7 or 8. I forgot what their record was last year. I think it was only 7 because they lost to Carolina on that in that last game. So I'm pretty sure I'd push them down to 7-10. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all that shakes out. So we'll have more analysis there, and then we'll be back here next week to break down. I guess we'll just do receivers and tight ends all as one. We'll just kind of combine those before we transition into rankings and such. So that's going to do it here. Spencer Guru, Gabe Henderson. This has been the Fantasy Roundup. Catch y'all next week.